Look at this, it's snowed outside. How about that? Geez, I've been up, I didn't even look. Well, anyway, to continue my thesis on the chemistry of homeopathy before I was so rudely interrupted by the limitations of my device. Apparently I only can record about 6 minutes before it shuts off. Anyway, I was talking about Einstein being a fraud. And I have to get comfortable here. So bear with me. I know it's such a task to bear with John. And you might ask, well, what does that have to do with homeopathy? I was talking about the 4 geniuses of the apocalypse. Samuel Hahnemann, Nikola Tesla, Albert Einstein, and Edison. Not necessarily in that order. So, yeah, and I'm talking about this because of the conception of what science is. You know, you hear all these people that think that relativity is real, and that Einstein was this great genius, and that Hahnemann was some crackpot, and that homeopathy is a hoax. Yet when you really delve into these things, you start looking at these things, different pictures emerge. And it makes you wonder really what's going on in our minds when we accept a person like Einstein as a physical genius and Hahnemann as a hoax. I mean, you look at Tesla, and he wasn't really recognized until really the later 20th century. It's only been within the last 20 or 30 years that Tesla was really recognized for his achievement. He's probably the greatest genius of all time within science. I mean, even his light bulb is, if you compare light bulbs, if you compare the Tesla light bulb with the light tube, with the the Edison light bulb, Tesla's got the superior light tube, excuse me. The fluorescent lighting was Tesla's invention. And now it's, they have now, screw in energy saver light bulbs or light tubes, the little spiral light tubes. Well, that's Edison's. That's Tesla's contribution to the world, one of his many. And yet, Tesla was pretty much ignored through most of the 20th century. I mean, I remember becoming aware of him back, I think, in the 70s. And even back then, I think he was considered to be kind of a kook. So, I mean, what's going on here? And what's interesting is that actually Tesla did hit on a few things that are relevant to homeopathy. So, you see, I'll eventually get back to my topic here. This being a continuation of my thesis on the chemistry of homeopathy, which they say doesn't exist. I mean, if you look at modern science, and the conventional reports on homeopathy, there is no chemistry. It's unknown. Well, I'm challenging that. I'm challenging that to say that there is a chemistry. It's conventional. It's basically ionization of the solute. It explains it. So there, in 2 words I've explained, like quantum entanglement defeats relativity, ionization of the solute, ionized solute, 2 words, defeat, debunk the notion that homeopathy doesn't have a chemistry to it. See, they say, oh, Avogadro, they bring up Avogadro's limit. Avogadro was this Italian mathematician, lived back in the early 1800s, who came up with what the limitation of, presumably what the skeptics are referring to as limitation of or the molecular limit, that once you dilute a substance so many times, that the molecular content will be diluted out of it, which is theoretically true. However, the molecular content gets stripped out of the homeopathic solution a lot sooner than the 23rd dilution. It gets stripped out by molecular dissociation within the 5th or 6th decimal dilution of the homeopathic solution. So it's just that simple. And it's diluted out by, or it's dissociated out by ionization. It ionizes or it hydrolyzes. So when you're looking at what's in the homeopathic solution, what they say is nothing, you actually find that it's been ionized, and that it's full of hydrolytes, which are supramolecular. In other words, they're beyond molecular structure. And there's nothing new about this. This is just basic electrochemistry. You know, Faraday was playing around with this stuff back in the 1800s. So, I mean, there's a lot that you can say about hydrolysis, electrolysis, radiolysis, molecular dissociation. But the point is that they say, well, there's nothing relevant to this within conventional chemistry. That's not true. Conventional chemistry does address infinite dilution. In fact, there's a NIST standard for it. The National Institute of Standards and Technology has a protocol for infinite dilution. Look it up. There's over 200,000 references to infinite dilution on the internet. I mean, that's pretty incredible when you think about it. That's something that supposedly doesn't exist, has 200,000 references within a scientific context on the internet. So anybody that says homeopathy doesn't work, because it's physically impossible, is a phony, a fraud, like Einstein. Hey, Einstein, you're a fraud, and your followers are frauds too. They pick up on that subconsciously, and they love it. They love it because the real genius of Einstein was fraud. And you find this going throughout science. If you're gonna, or what's called science, cut and measure science, if you're gonna give a genius award to somebody, I'd give it to Walt Thornhill of the Thunderbolts Electric Universe Project. Walt's bringing out stuff like the speed of gravity is instantaneous. Well, there you go. He talks about quantum entanglement being instantaneous. These things that surpass light speed. It's talking about unity within a physical context. He's a plasma physicist. That's the guy that should get the Nobel Prize. Ruin his life for a bit with the Nobel Prize. Anyway, so there's this context that we've built around homeopathy to say that it's unfathomable, that we don't know. That's not true. There's a physical reality to these things, and it can be seen through the transmission electron microscope. That there was a study done by Chickramain. Some Indian scientists got together and made a study of homeopathic solutions using a transmission electron microscope. And they found traces of the solute within the solution past the molecular limit. These dilutions that theoretically couldn't have anything of the original solute in them. They've actually found traces of them, and they found what looked like particulate matter. They ascribed this to what they would call the froth theory. There was just basically leftover material being injected into the to the next dilution from the previous one, which is nonsense. I mean, they misinterpreted their results. It's too bad. Because there's a conventional explanation for this. It's ionization. Molecular dissociation by ionization, or hydrolysis. Hydrolysis is the breakdown of the solute in water into submolecular particles. So there you go. I mean, that's pretty much it. The British Medical Journal back in 1992 reported that they, after examining the literature on homeopathy, they concluded that they would accept homeopathy if its mechanism were known. Well, the mechanism is known, and there are tests that demonstrate it. There's molecular conductivity tests that show the change in molecular conductivity in the molar conductivity in solutions. But how many people are running these tests? They don't run these physical tests on these solutions because they're scared of them. They know, they're afraid that they'll actually prove something, or in the case of the homeopaths, that it won't prove something. Everybody's running away from these tests, from this testing. I mean, there's spectrographic tests that that show opacity and the spectral density of the solution. There's probably about 9 or 10 different physical tests. There's